again, Pup here, back with yet another episode of GoTWiC Guides for Dummies. In today's episode, we're going to go over the third synergy in our series, the Female Commander synergy. Now for this one, you're really only going to need one commander on a technicality, but in reality, you are going to need two. The first one, of course, is Layla. Layla Momot is a phenomenal cav commander. She gives total attack, cav health, and defense. When your female commanders use their active skills, that skill will have a 30% chance of being used 2 times, a 10% chance of being used 3, and a 3% chance of being used 4 times. Now, if we go back, we'll remember that the active army skill is this top skill here. Every commander has a unique skill of their own, but this is going to be the skill that is used multiple times. Now, the reason I said you're going to want 2 is because there's another commander right here named Salma. Salma gives also phenomenal cav stats with cav attack at 40% and 15% total health. Yes, she does also buff spear commanders as well, so that's really nice. 40% increase there. But here's where the magic starts to happen. At the start of the battle, allied female commanders have an 80% chance to use their active skill 1 time directly. But the normal attacks of the troops the allied female commander belongs to will have a 30% chance of missing the enemy in the first 5 seconds. So basically, she gets rid of any of your normal attacks and converts that potential damage into the use of your active army skill. If you have her in your lineup with Layla, this is going to potentially compound because it allows any female commanders within that lineup to use their skill within the first second, and then that allows Layla the chance of having them use it again. So there is that synergy starting to unfold for you. Moving on, I will mention that the female synergy can be played with basically every troop type. There are female commanders within every troop type. First, we're going to take a quick peek at the infantry troop type. And when doing that, you're really only looking, obviously you're going to have these 2 commanders within your lineup to get your synergy popping off as soon as possible. One of the commanders you could include within your infantry lineup would be Lats. If you remember correctly, we've already looked at her awakening. I'll try to link the video up here. But she gives excellent infantry stats as well as a nice damage boost from her active army skill. On to the next infantry commander you could use in a infantry female build would be Haley. Haley gives great infantry stats. Moving her awakening every 1 time Haley uses her active skills, ally infantry will have a 40% chance to obtain a shield that grants immunity to damage 1 time that lasts for 3 seconds. So this is a little different than Kevin, say, because Kevin targets the lowest health formation and puts a shield on them, whereas Haley grants a shield to all infantry troops within the lineup. So it's a give and a take, but if you're using her active skill like I know you're going to be in this female lineup, then this could be potentially really good defensive measures against some of the other lineups that are possibly to face against you, like the weakness lineups. I will like to mention as well, Haley is fully free to play. She can be gotten from the werewood as well as awakened with purple tokens mentioned in previous videos. But yeah, excellent for a female infantry setup. Moving to one of the greatest female commanders that's free to play for you, that's going to be Arya. She gives total attack and inf defense. We'll ignore this little bit of wood here, it's not a huge impact. But popping over to her awakening, when Arya uses active skills to attack the enemy target lineup, 1 death marker will be added to the target lineup. For every 1 death marker on the target lineup, Arya's skill damage to that target increases by 20%. So effectively she is a self buffer, while under the female synergy. That can be increased and much better when you get her weapon increased as well. I'll try to post that here. But yeah, she can be kind of nice in a infantry female setup. Obviously, one of the best or the best way to run female is cavalry, but if you're going to do infantry, it is indeed possible. Moving on, we've got Andrea, and Andrea, of course, gives amazing infantry stats, as well as having that active ability. There is no particular buff when it comes to Andrea, having her in the lineup for female synergy in particular, but she does give a nice stat increase, as we've seen in a previous video. Now, moving away from infantry, because that's just about it when it comes to the infantry setup, we're going to look at another relatively cheap commander to get, can also be free to play, and that's going to be Leanna Waters. This is a cavalry commander that you want in your female lineup, all female lineup, for a mid to low spender. She gives excellent cavalry stats. Her awakening is when the cavalry portion of your troops is greater than that of the enemy's infantry. Cavalry defense 30%. When the cavalry portion of your troops is less than that of enemy infantry, cavalry attack plus 30%. So effectively the same as Andrea, except a cavalry form. The last in the mid spender to low is going to be Miranda. She is a spear commander. Gives excellent spear stats, but she is also the exact same as a Andrea and Leanna, but the spear version. Popping up to the hot recommendations, you're going to have a little bit pricier commanders. We'll get to these soon, but first we're going to focus in on Annie. Annie is phenomenal in a female lineup. She gives total defense, total attack, and spear health. Looking at her awakening though, when casting an active army skill, directly wipe out 3% of the target's currently deployed troops. Value cannot exceed 3% of Annie's currently deployed troops. So this is a really nice just annihilation of 3% of an active commander's troops. Is the number huge? No, but that happens a lot when you have active army skills popping off left and right with the addition of Layla and Salma within your lineup. This is happening really quickly. So most of female damage is happening within like the first 6 seconds of battle. So this is going to be great to have. Annie, it also gets better when you add her weapon. I will try to put that up here as well. But yeah, awesome commander to have. But moving on, we've got Marjorie. Marjorie is pretty niche when it comes to the female synergy. She gives research speed, total health, and total attack. Not a bad commander to have. She's excellent in the werewood, one of the best. But looking at her awakening after casting active army skills, there's a 50% chance to inflict the disarm status on one lineup of random enemy male commanders. The duration is equivalent to the number of enemy male commanders in battle times 2 seconds. Target lineup selection prioritizes the lineup with the most troops. Disarm status, normal attacks will miss their target. So what does that mean? It's effectively a counter to the combo bleed lineup. However, that particular synergy doesn't use a lot of male commanders. You'll have probably a Lario in there, potentially a Patello. And in that sense, Marjorie is very good because she can effectively, at a 50% chance, remove them from the equation because obviously they are male commanders. And the disarm status would take away their potential damage. So overall, like I said, an excellent commander to pick up, but she is very niche when it comes to actual PvP combat. Now, of course, we mentioned Salma already, but now we're going to go ahead and get into the expensive portion of this description here, and that is going to be with Daenerys. I'm going to go ahead and start with her. She gives total stats, an excellent quantity of each. Looking at her awakening though, summons allied dragons to launch one attack. Damage coefficient 50% against all enemies at the beginning of battle. Reduces the active army skill cooldown by 3 seconds. Each use has an 80% chance to put the target under the disarmed status for 4 seconds. Obviously we just learned about that, so this is also yet another counter to your combo bleed, except this one does not come with the caveat of it having to be male commanders. So Daenerys effectively counters combo bleed. I will remind that she is an F5 commander. However, she is one of the easier F5 commanders to get, if that can be said at all, as there are a lot of ways to get her through events, chests. It's just much simpler to get her. The real thing you're going to have to worry about is going to be those pesky commander tokens, the red ones. They are rather pricey, and there's a really hardly any way to get them quickly for free. So an excellent commander to pick up. She is also phenomenal in the werewood. She does crazy damage even if she's gray. Highly recommend the pickup. She's also excellent in the tavern, something I haven't quite mentioned yet, but there will be a video in the future on that. Moving on, we've got the next best cav commander in my opinion for combat, and that's going to be Sinel. She gives phenomenal stats, cav attack, total defense, and she gives that all-important counter ratio. Definitely a almost must pick up if you are a full cav synergy player. Looking at her awakening, each time allied commanders cast a total of 10 active army skills, purify the debuffs of Sinel and her lineups, and increase the skill damage of all female commanders by 65%. That can stack 4 times. Purification can dispel the debuffs silenced, bleed, and disarmed. Effectively, aside from like getting rid of weakness attacks, she counters all of the counters. So if you've got bleed on you, like with Rhea, she gets rid of that. If applied from an enemy, she will get rid of it, including all the way to disarmed. So Sinel is phenomenal. She is just basically a pure counter for you, as well as a buffer for your skill damage. So in my opinion, a almost must have. She is also, I'll remind, an F5 commander, so quite expensive, but also relatively easy to get, as she is also in those chests that I spoke of. Moving on, we're going to talk about Cersei. Cersei Lannister is a phenomenal female commander when it comes to the synergy. She gives total stats, 25% of each. Looking at her awakening, when your commanders use their active skills, there will be a 20% chance of casting Wildfire, dealing 20% damage to all enemies. The normal attacks of enemies hit by Wildfire will have a 20% chance of missing their target. This status lasts for 4 seconds. So once again, here's a little nod to a slight counter to your combo bleed with Cersei. But where she really shines is going to be this 20% chance of hitting all the lineups. That's frontline and backline. So she is very effective at throwing the damage around, as well as giving that 20% chance to miss. So a great pickup. She is a bow commander, but do not let that fool you. She gives no bow stats or anything of that nature. She is almost made for the female synergy, so a great pickup. Also an F5, so as you can see, the female lineup is getting rather expensive. Moving on, we'll talk about one of the newest additions to the female lineup, and that's going to be Cassana. She gives a cool 50% cav health, 25% total attack, and here's that ever valuable counter damage. Looking at her awakening, she is the F5 replacement for Salma. At the start of the battle, Cassana performs prayer for 2 seconds, during which allied female commanders are under silenced. After the prayer, the active skill cooldown of allied commanders is decreased by 2 seconds for this battle, the whole battle. Additionally, allied female commanders immediately cast active army skills one time on their enemies in the front column. Damage coefficient 200% reduced by 50 for each additional target hit. So the front column is referring to the front line of troops, and if your enemy only brings one troop type, that is going to be all lineups. So very, very effective. That's also going to not only allow you to get your first set of active army skills off, with a further chance of more active army skills with Layla, but it's also going to reduce that cooldown by 2 seconds for the rest of the battle. So phenomenal commander, absolutely as close to a must-have as possible without being a must-have, as you can just use Salma, but she is a very excellent upgraded version of Salma. With her weapon, that gets even better. I will try to include that here as well, but Cassana is an F5. She's a little bit more difficult to acquire as she just came out not long ago, and she has not been fully integrated into all of the possible ways to get F5s. Now, I did mention in the previous video, the weakness video, that I was going to give a nod to the female weakness combo, and I will try to go ahead and post that on screen now. What that's going to be is Jamie, Enzo, Layla, Salma, Annie for a kind of mid-spender Cav weakness lineup. Obviously these two must be in it, as well as Layla and Salma. The choice of the 5th commander is kind of up to you. For mid-spender, that's going to be roughly like probably an Annie. You wouldn't go with a Marjorie, as she is kind of middle of the road for the cost, but I would lean more towards an Annie, or if you're going to go for an F5 commander, possibly a Baelish in that lineup, or if not, maybe a Danny or even a Sinel. I did also mention, I think in my first video, that there is a free-to-play female version of like a female synergy. It is not 100% free-to-play. It could be, but it would take a very long time to get. And that is going to be something like a Layla, Salma, Arya, Uma, Haley situation. Keep in mind, they do all have to be 4 stars for this to take effect. Really, the playoff on that is going to be the Uma-Arya interaction. I posted their War Souls when I talked about it the first time, but 5 seconds after the battle begins, when Uma casts an active army skill, she will inflict the disarm status on enemy lineups with death markers for 4 seconds. If there are no lineups with death markers, a random lineup will be targeted. Triggers up to 2 times in a battle, cooldown 10 seconds. So the way that could work out is, obviously you've got Arya applying your death markers really early on, as long as you have your female synergy going within the first second, really, if you've got Salma in there. And then 5 seconds later, you have Uma coming back in and disarming. So this is a way to get that disarm status as a free to play, and can really affect some other combo bleed lineups early game. That is the setup a lot of people go with, because infantry is kind of thrown at you in the game. You get a lot of early infantry commanders and stuff of that nature, so she can be very good paired with Arya. You can get her from the recruitment pass shop. She is, like I said, relatively free to play in that sense. You can get her, Lario, Winton, or Barrett, Obian, or Egbert from this shop. So, really great commander to pick up if you are free to play. Alrighty, now time for everyone's favorite part of the video, the reports. But we're going to pop on over to the battle record, just so we can get a good idea For the record, Cassana is replacing Salma here, but we will scroll on down. In the first second of battle, of course, you're going to see all the advisors popping off. But one thing I would like to note about the female synergy here is with Cassana or Salma, if you're using her, something like this is going to happen in the first, and that is going to be Cassana starting to pray. She'll pray for 2 seconds, so to the 3rd second, and that's going to silence all your commanders, so they will not have the ability to use their active skills, but that's okay, because at the end of that 2 seconds on the 3rd, she will have all of them attack at the same time, and also have reduced cooldowns for all of their active abilities. So here we go, Cassana went ahead and used her skill. That then triggered Layla's skill, so it'll let Cassana attack again. Sinel used her skill, which in turn triggered Circe's Wildfire, which attacks all enemies, as well as giving that 40% chance to miss the target. But as you can see, as I'm scrolling down here, I might go ahead and do a little small fast forward, but it can get rather crazy. Feel free to pause or slow down the video as needed, but all of these skills just start popping off one after the other, one triggering each other, all within the first few seconds of combat. So the female synergy gets really out of hand very quickly. They call it the snowball effect, and it happens very fast and early on within the battle. So as you can see, all of that happened within the first 3 seconds of battle. That is a crazy amount of damage to be able to lay down by the 3rd second. But just as I've done in the other videos, I'm not going to spoil too much for these reports, but like I said, this is where you find it. That's basically how it plays out in the synergy. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out some of my other videos on weakness or combo bleed, as they might help you further understand how the different synergies interact with each other. But yeah, I think that's just about going to do it for this video, guys. If you stuck around until the end, thank you so much. I appreciate all of the time watching. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more, please hit that like and subscribe button. The next video I think I'm going to try to put out is a quick guide on this quick adjustment button here. I've gotten a lot of complaints about no one knowing what to do or how to do, so I am going to go ahead and put out a really quick guide for it. I hope you guys enjoyed and have a great day.